You've spent years convincing yourself you don't need much. You call it strength. You call it independence. You call it not being needy. But here's what it actually is. You've been so emotionally underfed for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to be full. And that emptiness? It's shaping every relationship you choose. There are certain emotional needs that every human being has. Needs that aren't luxuries, aren't extras, aren't things you earn after you've proven you're good enough. They're fundamental, non-negotiable, essential for your nervous system to feel safe, your heart to feel open, and your relationships to actually thrive. But somewhere along the way, many women learn to mute these needs, to shrink them, to apologize for them, to convince themselves that wanting more was the same as asking for too much. And so you adapted. You became the one who gives without expecting return, the one who stays calm when you're falling apart inside, the one who makes herself small so others can feel big. You thought it made you easy to love, but it actually made you easy to overlook. Today, we're going to name 5 emotional needs that almost every woman ignores, not because she doesn't have them, but because she was taught they weren't allowed. And we're going to look at what happens to your relationships when these needs stay buried, because what you won't ask for, you won't receive, and what you won't receive, you'll eventually resent. Let's begin. The need to feel chosen. Let's start with the one that might sting the most. The need to feel chosen. Not tolerated. Not convenient. Not good enough for now. Chosen. Deliberately. Clearly. Without ambiguity. Here's what that looks like when it's missing. You're in a relationship, or a situationship, where you're always slightly unsure of where you stand. He says he likes you, but his actions are inconsistent. He responds to your texts, but he never initiates. He spends time with you, but never makes plans in advance. You're in his life, but you're not quite in his life. And instead of recognizing this for what it is, a man who hasn't fully chosen you, you tell yourself you're overthinking, that you should be more chill, that you don't want to be that girl. So you stay. You wait. You hope he'll come around. But deep down, there's a quiet ache, a question you can't quite silence. Does he actually want me? Here's the psychology behind why this happens. If you grew up in an environment where love felt conditional, where you had to perform, achieve, or suppress parts of yourself to feel accepted, you learned that being chosen isn't something you deserve by default. It's something you earn. So when a man gives you crumbs, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels familiar. You don't expect to be pursued because you've never been pursued. You don't expect to feel certain because certainty was never modeled for you. You settle for being an option because you've never truly felt like a priority. And here's what that does to your relationship. It keeps you in a constant state of low-grade anxiety. You're always scanning for reassurance, always trying to interpret his behavior, always adjusting yourself to keep him interested. Because if he hasn't fully chosen you, then you might still lose him. This is exhausting, and it erodes your self-worth over time. But when you finally honor this need, when you stop accepting ambiguity and start requiring clarity, something shifts. You stop asking, "Does he like me?" and start asking, "Is he showing me he wants me?" And if the answer is no, you walk. Not with anger, with self-respect. Because the woman who knows she deserves to be chosen and doesn't wait around to be picked, she moves toward people who make it obvious. 2. The need for emotional safety. The second need women ignore is the need for emotional safety. And this one runs deep. Emotional safety means feeling like you can be yourself, fully, openly, without fear of judgment, dismissal, or punishment. It means knowing that when you express a feeling, it won't be turned against you. That when you're vulnerable, you won't be shamed for it. That when you speak up, you won't be made to feel crazy. Here's what happens when this need is ignored. You're in a relationship where you've learned to filter yourself. You think twice before you speak. You rehearse conversations in your head. You swallow your feelings to avoid conflict. Because the last time you were honest, it turned into a fight. And somehow, you ended up apologizing. So you stop saying what you feel. You start managing his emotions instead of honoring yours. You shrink. And then the anxiety starts. You overthink everything. You replay conversations. You catastrophize. You wonder if you said the wrong thing, even when you barely said anything at all. This isn't because you're too sensitive. It's because your nervous system is in a state of low-level threat. It's scanning for danger, waiting for the next rupture, bracing itself. You don't feel safe, and your body knows it, even when your mind tries to rationalize it away. Here's why so many women tolerate this. Because emotional safety wasn't modeled in childhood. Maybe your home was volatile. Maybe your emotions were dismissed as too much. Maybe you learned that expressing needs made you a burden, so you stopped expressing them. You normalized walking on eggshells. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar. And so when a partner makes you feel anxious, guarded, or unsure of how he'll react, you don't register it as a red flag. You register it as relationship. But here's the truth. You cannot be intimate with someone you don't feel safe with. You can go through the motions. You can stay in the relationship, but your heart will stay closed. Your body will stay tense. And over time, you'll either explode or disappear. When you finally honor this need, everything changes. You stop tolerating partners who make you feel like you're walking through a minefield. You start choosing people whose presence calms your nervous system, not activates it. And you realize, love shouldn't feel like survival mode. It should feel like rest. The need for reciprocity. The third need is the one so many women have been taught to feel guilty for even wanting: the need for reciprocity. This means receiving as much as you give, being supported as much as you support, having your effort matched, not just acknowledged. And for many women, this need has been buried so deep, they've convinced themselves they don't even have it. Here's what that looks like. You're always the one reaching out, always the one planning, always the one remembering details, checking in, making space. You carry the emotional weight of the relationship on your back, and you call it love. Meanwhile, he floats. He shows up when it's convenient. He enjoys the warmth you provide, but rarely stokes the fire himself. And when you bring it up, he says you're keeping score. So you stop bringing it up. You tell yourself that love isn't transactional, that you give because you want to, not because you expect anything in return. But here's the thing. Love is reciprocal. Not transactional, but reciprocal. There's a difference. Transactional love says, I gave, so now you owe me. Reciprocal love says, we both give freely, and we both receive. When you're in a reciprocal relationship, you don't feel drained. You feel nourished. The giving doesn't empty you because it's being replenished. But when you're the only one giving, you burn out. You become resentful. You start to feel invisible in your own relationship. Here's why women tolerate this. Because many were raised to believe that their value lies in what they provide. You were praised for being helpful, for being easy, for not needing too much, for taking care of others without complaint. So you learned that love flows outward from you, not inward. You became a giver who doesn't know how to receive. And when you finally meet someone who wants to give to you, it feels uncomfortable, wrong, even suspicious. You deflect compliments. You refuse help. You say, "I'm fine," when you're not. Not because you don't need anything, but because you've been trained to need nothing. Here's what changes when you honor this need. You stop overfunctioning. You stop trying to earn love through labor. You let people show up for you. And if they don't, you believe them. And eventually, you meet someone who gives. Not because you demanded it, but because that's who they are. That's reciprocity. And you deserve it. 4. The need to be understood. The fourth emotional need is subtle, but devastating when it's missing. The need to be understood. Not just heard, but understood. There's a difference between someone listening to your words and someone getting you. Between someone nodding while you speak and someone actually entering your emotional world. Here's what it looks like when this need is ignored. You share something vulnerable, a fear, a wound, a hope, and your partner responds with logic, or advice, or dismissal, or worse, he makes it about himself. So you stop sharing. You learn to edit. You start filtering your inner world before it ever reaches the surface. Because what's the point of opening up if no one is going to meet you there? And here's where it gets painful. You might have become so used to being misunderstood that you've stopped trying to be understood at all. You've accepted that no one really gets you, that your inner world is too complex to explain. That emotional intimacy is a myth. So you keep people at arm's length. You stay surface level. You become fluent in small talk, but starving for depth. This usually starts in childhood. If you grew up with caregivers who didn't attune to your emotional needs, who dismissed your fears, mocked your feelings, or simply weren't equipped to go deep, you learned that your inner world wasn't worth exploring. You internalized. No one wants to know the real me. And that belief became a blueprint. You chose partners who confirmed it. You stayed with men who never asked how you really felt, who changed the subject when things got too emotional, who made you feel like your depth was a burden. But here's what I want you to know. The right person will want to understand you. They'll ask follow-up questions. They'll remember what you said 3 months ago. They'll hold space for your contradictions without needing to fix you. And when you finally feel understood, truly understood, something in your nervous system exhales. You stop feeling alone inside your own life. You stop translating your inner world into something more palatable. You just are. And someone is there, seeing you. That's not too much to ask. That's the minimum for real intimacy. 5. The need for consistency. The fifth need is the one that might trigger you the most, because you've probably been taught it's unreasonable. The need for consistency, not perfection, not 24/7 attention, just reliability, predictability, the quiet assurance that the person who showed up yesterday will show up tomorrow. Here's what inconsistency looks like. He's attentive 1 week, distant the next. He makes plans, then cancels. He tells you he cares, then disappears. You never know which version of him you're going to get. And here's the trap. That inconsistency creates a kind of addictive emotional cycle. When he's present, the dopamine floods your brain. You feel euphoric, relieved. Finally, you think, this is the real him. But when he withdraws, the dopamine crashes. You feel anxious, desperate, and you start working overtime to get that feeling back. This is called intermittent reinforcement, and it's one of the most powerful drivers of emotional attachment. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. You don't know when the reward is coming, so you keep pulling the lever. You keep hoping. You keep staying. And the most heartbreaking part? You might even call this chemistry, because the highs are so high and the lows are so low. It feels intense. It feels like passion. But it's not passion. It's dysregulation. It's your nervous system in chaos. Real love doesn't keep you guessing. Real love shows up again and again, without drama. Here's why women tolerate inconsistency. Because many grew up in environments where chaos was the norm, where love was unpredictable, where you never knew if today would be a good day or a storm. So inconsistency feels familiar, and consistency feels boring. You might even reject consistent men, not because they're wrong for you, but because your system doesn't know how to register steady love as exciting. But here's what changes when you heal this. You start to feel the difference between activation and attraction. Activation is your nervous system in fight or flight. It's adrenaline. It's obsession. It's chaos dressed up as connection. Attraction is warmth, safety, presence. It's a slow build, not a spike. When you finally choose consistency, your body learns something new. That love doesn't have to be earned every day. That you can relax. That peace isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of trust. Transformation. The woman who honors her needs. So what happens when you stop ignoring these needs? What happens when you stop pretending you don't want to be chosen, safe, reciprocated, understood, and met with consistency? Something radical. You stop attracting people who can't meet you, because you're no longer available for crumbs. You're no longer tolerating less than you deserve. You're no longer betraying yourself for the sake of connection. You become the woman who says, "This is what I need. And if you can't offer it, I wish you well, but I won't be staying." Not from ego, not from coldness, from wholeness. And here's what the right partner looks like when you're healed. He doesn't feel threatened by your emotional needs. He doesn't roll his eyes when you ask for reassurance. He doesn't make you feel too much for wanting depth. He welcomes your needs. He sees them as invitations to love you better. Because the right man knows that a woman who asks for nothing is often a woman who has given up. And a woman who asks for what she needs, that's a woman who knows her worth. A woman who's done settling. A woman worth rising for. That's the woman you're becoming. Here's the truth no one tells you. You don't have too many needs. You've just been around too many people who couldn't meet them. And so you adapted. You shrank. You told yourself that wanting less was the same as being strong. But it isn't. Strength is knowing what you need and refusing to apologize for it. Strength is walking away from anyone who makes your needs feel like burdens. Strength is choosing yourself again and again until someone shows up who chooses you too. You've spent long enough being the woman who didn't ask. It's time to become the woman who receives. If this video helped you name something you've been carrying in silence, imagine what understanding the rest of your emotional wiring could do. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. I'll meet you in the next one.